just because you are married to someone of a different race doesn't mean that you are no longer a racist. Just because you have mixed race children doesn't mean that you're not racist. And certainly because you're black or mixed race doesn't mean that you're not racist.
If you two ever really started going at one another, inside of 5 minutes, he'd be calling you, don't say nigga.
Even when we've had our worst fights, you've never called me nigga.
That doesn't mean it never crossed my mind.
Listen, no woman on this whole earth, not even a black woman in Muslim countries, can please me and cook for me and socialize and talk to me like my American black woman. No woman, at last is a white woman, can really identify with me and my feelings and the way I act and the way I talk. And you can't take no Chinese man and give him no Puerto Rican woman and holler about we in love and you emotionally in love and physically, but really they're not happy because she's gonna hear some Puerto Rican music, he's gonna hear some Chinese music, and they're gonna be clashing all the time. It's just nature. You can do what you want, but it's nature to want to be with your own. Love my people. That's all. I don't hate nobody. It's short for me to be raised catching hell for something like that. I'd rather go and be my own. I have a beautiful daughter, beautiful wife. They look like me. We're all happy, and I don't have no trouble. I have no trouble. I ain't that much in love with no woman to go through all that hell. Ain't no one woman that good.
It's sad that
it ain't sad because I want my child to look like me. Every intelligent person wants his child to look like him. I'm sad because I want to blot out my race and lose my beautiful identity. Chinese love Chinese. They love the little slanted-eyed, pretty brown-skinned babies. Pakistanis love their culture. Jewish people love their culture. A lot of Catholics don't want to marry number Catholics. They want the religion to stay the same. Who want to spot up yourself and kill your race?
It doesn't matter how a biracial child happens to look. If it looks more black or more white or doesn't look like it have any black in them, we're still our own race and we don't belong to one or the other.
You're not black, and on the white side you're not white. So where do you fit?
You're not just black or you're not just white. We somehow need to be acknowledged more instead of just saying somebody's black. I mean, look at me. I don't look like I'm black or I don't look like I'm white. So I think that somewhere in there needs to be a happy medium.
There's really no way to be black or white. That's the problem with being mixed. People expect you to be ghetto or something, but I don't want ghetto to define black.
Nobody really wants to touch the subject of biracial people and the discrimination that they have to face almost every day between the two races.
You get criticism from both. You get rejected from both because you're not part 100% of them.
Black people treat me like I'm black, but, then you have some complexes inside of that, too. I'm the light-skinned black girl, which has its own issues. She's light-skinned. That's the light girl. Oh, she thinks she's all that. Who does she think she is with her hair and all of that? I've probably dealt with more racism within the black culture.
I used to have nightmares about half my body being beat up. You have black, so we're gonna beat you half to death. This is things that you don't really think that you're going to really say to anybody else because they might seem it to be absurd.
I want to be who I am. And my biggest beef is, I'm a sister, but I'm also a white girl. Yeah. So I'm a half of both. I'm a half a white girl and half a sister.
Because we're finally getting to that place where, eventually we'll stop seeing color as a boundary between us.
It makes me feel interesting. I'm not just one race that I'm two. So it makes me look like more of an interesting person.
Nobody else can really have an experience of having a foot in each court.
That makes you maybe different, unique, but also vulnerable.
I don't know
preference.
I wish that I was either one
or the other, because I would have been loved for who I was.
I accepted having the best of both worlds, and sometimes having the worst of both worlds too.
If my father wasn't Lebanese, if my mother wasn't who she was, maybe I would have had a normal childhood.
I was ashamed at times of both. There was a time in my life I didn't want to be German or white. And then there's a time in my life I didn't want to be black. I even changed my last name to an Italian last name. I couldn't identify myself with either or the other. I just wanted to be me.
So you try to just go about life as just trying to fit in wherever you can, however you can.
I think the tragedy is when you shrug your shoulders when I say there's an identity issue.
Sometimes it makes me confused because, like, some people aren't nice to me because I'm not in their race, but I say I'm half in their race.
I'm Alicia, I'm 9, I have a white dad and a black mom. A lot of my friends are white. When I'm over at their house, my mom comes. Sometimes sometimes it's a little embarrassing because, like, everyone's white there.
Like, I don't think racism has ever stopped. Like, from the civil rights, people are still always going to be racist, but I think it gets better and better as time goes on.
I don't think that you should be embarrassed because if people don't like who you are, just find somebody who does.
Would be to get a shelter dog, but obviously a lot of shelter dogs are mutts like me. Would be to get a shelter dog, but obviously a lot of shelter dogs are mutts like me.
Born black, I live black, and I'm gonna die probably because I'm black. Because some cracker that knows I'm black better than you, nigga, is probably gonna put a bullet in the back of my head.
Something for you? Sorry to trouble you, miss, but I brought these for my little girl. I'm afraid you made a mistake. I don't have any little colored girl in my class. But they said 3B. This is 3B, isn't it? Why, there's Sarah Jane. There's my baby. You mean Sarah Jane Johnson? Yes, ma'am. I'm Mrs. Johnson. Sarah Jane, baby, I brought you here. Sarah Jane, what do you want to do, catch pneumonia?
I hope I do. I hope I die.
Honey, nothing's hurt. You shouldn't have let them
They didn't ask me. Why should I tell them?
Because that's what you are, and it's nothing to be ashamed of.
Why do you have to be my mother? Why?
Children are always pretending. It's a sin to be ashamed of what you are. Sarah Jane has to learn that the Lord must have had his reasons for making some of us white and some of us black.
Until very recently, any person with one drop of black blood was black. In America's beginning, there was race mixing, especially among indentured servants and slaves. In 1676, during Bacon's Rebellion, these blacks and whites fought the white ruling class holding them in bondage, and lost. To prevent future rebellions, the ruling class introduced one of the earliest variations of the one drop of black blood rule, transforming a class-based society into a race-based society.
The purpose of the rule was to make clear distinctions between black people and white people. Well, I may not ever be on the bottom down there with you because I'll never be a black person, but I can certainly have some sort of prestige or social status psychologically for being white.
Interracial unions were outlawed. Those with a drop of black blood were pushed into the black. This one-drop rule defined slavery and entrenched the laws of segregation, until the civil rights movement destroyed those laws. But not the one-drop rule, which reinvented itself into the 5 primary race boxes used by identity politics in its quest for racial justice.
Ward came into this world, he was more than an underdog. He was an outcast. Ward was born in 1976 in Seoul, South Korea, to a Korean mother and an African-American father serving in the U.S. Army. In Korea, children of mixed ethnicity have long been pariahs, shunned by mainstream society. As a result, biracial Koreans are usually poorer and less well-educated than pure-blooded Koreans. The women who bear these children are also subjected to harsh intolerance.
But yeah, I mean, of course I'm really honored to be playing for Japan, and my dad's side is Haitian, so represent. Of course I'm really honored to be playing for Japan, and my dad's side is Haitian, so represent.
The primary parent of Nala. Berry claimed that Aubrey used racial epithets against her and even refused to acknowledge that their daughter was biracial. She said that the emotional trauma of that, along with the fact that he had a troubled past sexually, is what damaged their sex life as a couple. A series of documents in 2011 to prove that he was unfit to be the primary parent of Nala. Berry claimed that Aubrey used racial epithets against her and even refused to acknowledge that their daughter was biracial. She